Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Morning.
Okay. Come on. Okay, so I'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes. I don't see a lot of people who generally join. How was your weekend?
Good, thank you.
Good.
How was yours?
Yeah, it was good. I didn't know when it went by.
Yes, it went so quickly.
Yeah, it was a quick weekend. Okay. Okay, it's 11:10 already. So yeah, we'll begin. Back and neck straight. Just close your eyes. And start observing your breath. Bringing your mind to the present. And allowing your breath to settle. And now begin to elongate your breath. Inhale deeply. Then hold for 2 seconds. And then exhale deeply. Continuing the same breath pattern for a few breaths. Inhalation, holding, and then exhalation. We'll chant Om 3 times, followed by 3 Shantis. Inhale deeply for Om. Om. Shanti, Shanti. Relax yourself. Now join both your palms in front of your chest and rub both the palms together. Place them over the eyes. Slowly, while blinking and looking at your palms, open up your eyes. And namaste to everyone. So, first question for you today. How is your diary going? Are you maintaining a diary? And if you are, how is it going? If you're not, why are you not maintaining? You should be maintaining a diary. Okay. So, nobody is maintaining a diary so far.
So actually, I kind of not maintain a diary, but actually I keep half an hour or 45 minutes daily to think what went throughout the day. what went wrong, and I plan for, and that time also I according to plan next day also. So I kind of maintain that kind of mental diary daily, but not physical.
Actually, physically writing it down would really help you to, like, sometimes our thoughts are like in a circle or other thoughts come in. So maintaining a diary really helps you to sort those things out. So if you can write something out of that, that would be good. But that is good enough. If main point is reflection only, reflection of your day and what you can improve the next time. So good. So others who are not, please start maintaining a diary. It will help you immensely. Yeah. And philosophy is such a subject that it like gives you a lot of questions. So all of those things, when you write those down, more concepts will become clear to you. Like when you write those down yourself, your own doubts relating to philosophy also, those things will start to become clear to you more. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so game for today. So we are doing Atlas only, but things that you find in your home. Okay, so for example, I'll start bed sheet. So the next person will start with tea. Some household item with tea.
Okay, towel.
TOY. You're on mute, Jagriti ji. Sorry,
Mute,
still on
you're mute.
Now, can you? Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Microwave oven.
No,
L,
no.
towel.
Toys. You said toys, right?
Towel, towel. L,
Oh,
L.
towel. L.
L. Acha. Okay, okay.
With L, can you think of something?
Yeah, yeah. Laddu.
Okay. Oh, Sharon, you have to name something which is in your house which starts with the letter O.
Um, I can't think of anything.
Think.
Oh,
Okay.
an orange. Can you count fruit?
Oh, yeah, it does. E. So I would say with E, electric toothbrush. H. Omkar ji.
H. Hangers.
S. Jagriti ji.
Okay. Sor. Curd.
Oh, CORD. D. Sharon, anything with D?
With D. A duster.
Okay, good. R. Rack. Omkar ji, K.
A. Actually, a lot of name comes of food items, but that is like there are a lot of.
It's okay, but try not to include food items, just the things that you see in your house. Like, because food is also there, I understand, but
Yeah. That's what
let's.
actually I was thinking something different, but every time food comes in the mind. I was say
Go with some food item only, okay?
kofta.
Apple.
Apple. E. Sharon, E. With E.
Um, electric oven.
Oh, nice. Okay. And Jayashree ji, we are doing Atlas, but for things that you find in the house. So you can go with N.
Yes, ma'am. things found in good morning.
Good
Four
morning.
things found in home.
Yeah, in your house, anything that you find in your house, which right now the letter that you have is N.
And knife.
N, not K.
Oh, sorry.
Think.
Nuts.
Okay, we're back to food item. S, I will say soap. T, Omkar ji.
P. Paper.
Oh, R, Jagruti ji.
Rooms.
S. Sharon, you have S now.
S. SETI.
Okay. It ends with
Ends with E.
A. Okay. A. Jayashri ji.
Angles.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. S. Shampoo. O. Omkar ji. This is the last round.
Okay. O. Oven. It's done.
P.
Electric oven is done. Oven is not.
Owen is not done. Okay. N.
Nile shampoo.
Oh. O. Sharon.
An overcoat.
Okay. Nice. T. T. Jayashri ji.
Terrace.
Okay, nice. Great. Okay, so we'll end the game here. So now everybody is awake, so we'll start with today's topic. So we're discussing Gyan Yog the last time, and we discussed the 4 pillars of Gyan Yog and then the 3 core practices of Gyan Yog. Okay, so Gyan Yog is the path of wisdom or knowledge. When we say knowledge, we actually mean knowledge that is intuitive. Yeah, with my own experience, the knowledge that I'm gaining, that is the knowledge when we are talking of Gyan Yog, which is actually called wisdom. But Gyan literally translates to knowledge. So in a lot of places, you will see path of knowledge. Okay, so I'll share my screen. Okay. So we were doing this the last time. These are the 4 pillars. Okay, they are also
Not able
called
to see your screen.
unable to see.
No, now it's
Yes.
Okay, it's visible.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So last time we were discussing the 4 pillars of Gyan Yoga, which are also called Sadhana Chatushte, okay, in Sanskrit. Okay, and these are Vivek, Vairagya, Shat Sampat, and Mumukchutva. Okay, these are the 4, we can say, pillars. And the English translation is also written with them. What do these words mean? So this is the Sanskrit word Vivek, and it means discrimination. Vairagya means detachment. Shat Sampat means the 6 virtues. And Mumukshutva means the intense desire to be liberated. Okay.
So here also, like in Gyan Path also, right, we can see that we are starting with some desire. Even it's more liberation, we are starting with desire, and ultimately we will come that desire will be not there. But at the start, we will always start with some kind of desires, right? Even in the Bhakti Yoga also, we will start with God desire, and then maybe ultimately that will be not there. Just a doubt.
Yeah, so see, human beings function in this way. Okay, so there are a lot of desires that we have, and those desires which push us to achieve things. So because we perceive the world like this, so we think that without desires we won't be pushed to do anything. Like in Karma Yoga also, I think this question came up. Okay, without desire or without that passion, how will I fulfill something? But initially desire is the main thing. We try to narrow down the path of that desire. Basically right now I'm desiring 100 things, and out of those 90 are not serving me, so I will come to the 10 which are actually right now good for me. Okay, then I will cut down to one, and then I will try to get rid of that one also. Yeah,
Yeah.
because desire is what is causing suffering. That is why you want to come out of it when you get that realization. Okay, so first is vivek or discrimination. So a gyan yogi has to be very strong, okay, because in gyan yoga there are a lot of truths that you don't want to hear about. Yeah, and I told you the last time also, when your knowledge and your practice doesn't go hand in hand, sometimes you're not able to absorb the information that is given to you. So a lot of like strong will is required when you're on the path of gyan yoga. And if you are able to get that information, and when you understand that this is real and this is not real, this is permanent, this is impermanent, so when you start attaining this knowledge, then vivek or discrimination starts coming to you naturally. Now when you engage in something, you are aware that this is right and this is wrong. You start understanding what is correct, what is not correct, what is real and what is not real, and that becomes your basis of acting on something. Now for example, if there is something which is temporary for me, yeah, and a normal person might get attached to that. So I can take an example of an object. Okay, so maybe I want a phone, um, and I'm like constantly aiming to get that phone. Yeah, I'm earning so that I reach that particular target and get that phone. So what happens is, by the time I have earned that much to get that phone, maybe because of some reason the price goes up. Yeah, so if I am not on the path of Gyan Yoga, I will get very sad because of that, because I am attached to the object. Yeah, when I'm doing something, all of my actions are directed towards one thing, and not only directed, there is a sense of attachment over there. But a Gyan Yogi will not be attached to those things, because he understands that these are all temporary things. They will come and go. Yeah. But what is permanent is what he sticks to, which is the concept of Atma, or the consciousness which comes in, and he acts according to that. Okay. So with your increase in knowledge, when you read the scriptures, the Upanishads, the Vedas, then this faculty not only develops, it comes till that point where you reach the second stage where you are detached once again. So both of them are intertwined. When I know what is real, what is not real, what is permanent, what is impermanent, then a sense of detachment will come towards the things which are not permanent. Yeah, it doesn't mean that I won't have them or have the desire to acquire them, but there would be a sense of detachment with it. Okay, my happiness will not depend on that thing, because I know that the ultimate goal is something else altogether, and the material world that I am experiencing is once again temporary. Okay, so a deep sense of vairagya comes in just by attaining knowledge. Sometimes what happens is, we listen to something, for example, some guru is talking or somebody is talking, and we are like totally in tune, yeah, whatever he's saying. So we get those aha moments. Yeah, so those aha moments lead you to detachment. After that, you will never be attached to those things again. Your way of seeing life changes entirely. Yeah, so it's the knowledge which is giving you that intuitive knowledge is Gyan Yoga. Yeah. Then after we come to these two stages, after we have achieved this, then we make the mind strong. Okay, even more strong, I can say. So we come to the Shat Sampat, or the six virtues. These are mental attitudes that you develop, okay, which help you to gain control over your mind and emotions. That doesn't mean you're suppressing your emotions, but it helps you to navigate through them in a better way. Okay, so I'll write down the 6 virtues that we have. Okay. Shama or wait. I'll write down the Sanskrit also. Wait. Shama, Dama, Uparti. This is calmness. This is
Samadhan is focus or satisfaction?
it's translated to focus only.
Okay.
More or like solution.
Yeah, you can say. But in this context, it's mostly when you are able to focus on like the thing that you are.
Focus on what you have, right?
Yeah. On. I will explain when I get there.
Also, I have one more doubt here, but let me, like, if I can, you are explaining or first I.
Out of all of these, you have a doubt?
Yeah, this. Actually, this control of senses and withdrawal of senses, right? This actually, don't you think it should come before Vairagya, before Viveka? Because if someone is dwelling into the sense pleasure, right? So ultimately, its intellect is getting vanished, like lots of places. And I have also understood, like if someone is addicted in drugs, if you try to explain him what is right, what is wrong, then how he will be able to understand. So first the control of senses and the some kind of needed. After that, he will come to a stage where he can discriminate between what is right, what is wrong, what is eternal, what is temporary. So because you told that this is generally comes in sequence, right? Vivek, Vairagya, then you need to have Shakti. That's why I'm asking.
So withdrawal of senses over here is something we can say somewhat related to also pratyahar, like where you are
But there is
withdrawing.
control of senses also, right? Dhamma.
Yeah. So see, in Gyan Yoga, these come in this order. So somebody who is like you, I'm taking your example only, somebody who is into drugs and all of these things, I don't think they will go into Gyan Yoga, because first thing, they would not have that level of awareness, okay, when they are doing that. Second of all, once again, I told you, your will has to be very strong when you are on the path of Gyan Yoga. So like somebody who is into drugs or alcohol, they will leave this path very soon, like, so they won't reach this point. Like even if I put this first, then also they won't be able to reach that point, because see, their will won't be very strong to leave that. Yeah, they will be in the rogi stage, right? Once you want to come out of the rogi stage and get into the bhogi stage, that is when you start exploring the path of yoga. Yeah, I'm not saying you leave it completely. Sometimes because a bhogi also enjoys all the pleasures of life, but that would be a higher stage of rogi, I would say, where you are at least understanding
Okay,
that
I
now you have
understood,
to come
understood
out.
what you want to
Hmm.
understood.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so I'll start. Okay, so these are the 6 virtues that you develop, okay, on your path of Gyan Yoga, and they have emphasized a lot on all of them. Okay, so first is Shama or calmness. So when you are faced with situations in your life which like cause mental, like I can say mentally disturb me. Yeah, so the virtue of Shama should come in, or calmness. Okay, where I am able to control my mind and understand that this is not permanent. Yeah, and try to gain that control over my thoughts, that okay, I don't have to go into an up and down with the temporary changes in life. So I start controlling my mind by keeping it calm during those situations. Okay, then we come to the next part, which is control of senses. Once my mind is a little bit controlled, yeah, then I will also start directing. It will be now in a stable position where it is able to gain control of the senses also. Okay, if my mind is unstable, it will run anywhere and everywhere the senses are taking it. Yeah, but now when I have at least stabilized it a little bit, then Dhamma comes in, where I start controlling my senses. So the easiest way to control the senses is to stay connected with them, yeah, at all times. And after that, you, what do you start doing? You start putting them in the direction which is most productive for them. Yeah, now you will shift from indulgence to a conscious place. At least for starters, you will shift to a point where now you're conscious of your actions. Yeah, once I become conscious of my actions, then I will start understanding that this is right for me, this is wrong for me. Okay, this I'm explaining from a normal point of view right now. Okay, so for us, how we can go about it, we become conscious, then we realize, okay, this is hurting me, this is not hurting me, which whatever is hurting me, I then try to eliminate that. I give my senses some other path. Yeah, and eventually when I do that, when I'm able to at least gain a little bit control over my senses, then I come to the third stage, which is uparti, okay, or withdrawal of senses. Now at least for now my senses were at least directed in a right way. Yeah, now what I will do is I will go into withdrawal, where I will withdraw myself from materialistic things. So right now, because I see like the material world around me, and that is my reality, yeah, I'm experiencing that. So there is a sense of attachment that comes to the material world, and a Gyan Yogi knows that this material world is also temporary. The consciousness is the part which is going to be eternal. Yeah,
This
so hmm.
withdrawal senses, you said that it's related to pratyahara, right? That means it's
Yeah.
internal withdrawal, right? While
It's internal also. It's so for a beginner, they start withdrawing from the pleasures of the sense object, but on a deeper level it comes in the form of pratyahar, where your mind is also becomes detached from the senses. Yeah, not detached in the sense that there is no consciousness, but your mind is now not attached to the pleasure that you receive out of those material things. So it goes on a deeper level also, like pratyahar does. Okay, is that clear, or is it a little bit confusing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
great. So initially you start withdrawing from everything around you. Yeah, not exactly everything around you, but the material world. Yeah, and then there is a sense of detachment in the mind also. So once the senses withdraw, they immediately come in control of the mind. So right now the mind is in control of the senses, so the senses are running out. Yeah, and you are following the senses, okay, wherever they take you. The easiest way to get the senses in control of the mind is to withdraw them, because once they are withdrawn from the external world and they go, like you direct them towards the internal self, then easily the mind is able to gain control of the senses, because now you are not running with your senses everywhere. Yeah. So when I cut the point where which is making the senses go out of control, I can say, or not be in control of the mind, then immediately, of course, if I'm not walking towards, if there are only two directions I can walk in, so if I'm not going towards the I can say forward, if I'm not going forward, then I will automatically go backward. Yeah. So uparti is the point where everything or your senses come into the control of your mind. Okay. Then we go to titiksha. This is also a very good virtue to develop. Okay. So this is the virtue of tolerance. So now, okay, I have withdrawn everything. I am pretty detached, but that doesn't, one thing is it doesn't last for a long time. At least for a beginner, you have moments, yeah, where you are detached. There is a sense of vairagya, and then you come back into attachment. That is what happens with meditation also. We go into meditation for a few seconds and then we come back. Yeah, we hit that point, and then the whole aim is to elongate that process. So same goes on when we are on the path of Gyan. So sometimes we become detached for a beginner, sometimes we become detached, and then sometimes we are back in that state of attachment. So that is where titiksha would really help you. So when there are opposites, there is duality, there is happiness, so there would be sorrow, high and low. So what helps you over there is your level of tolerance. When you are able to see this duality, be aware of it, and develop tolerance towards that reality. Yeah, that it's, if it's going one way, then it will come around in the other way as well. Okay. So then the Gyan Yogi works on his level of tolerance, after which he has to reach the next point, which is shraddha. Shraddha is very important. Okay. Faith in, not only in bhakti yoga, in everything and anything you do in life, there is a level of faith that you have towards that thing. That is why you are doing it. Yeah. Even for bad habits, I would say there is a level of faith that they will liberate you from your suffering. Yeah. So that is why you keep continuously repeating that bad behavior, or you are attached to that pleasure. So there is some faith behind every action that you do in your day. Yeah. So when a person is on the path of Gyan Yoga, this Shraddha is very important. He has to develop faith. If he doesn't have it already, he has to develop faith in the practice, in his guru, yeah, and in the overall teachings of yoga, yeah, or Gyan Yoga, I can say over here, because he's on the path of Gyan Yoga. So his level of faith in those things really determines how much he will be able to stick to the practices. Because if I don't believe in something, I might follow it because I'm supposed to, but I won't be able to stick for it for a long time. So faith plays a very important role over here. Okay. And then you come to the last point, which is samadhan, or we can say focus, one pointedness. Then you are able to, once you have, you go through all of these things, then you are able to now focus your mind towards your main thing, the thing that you want to focus on. Okay. On the path of Gyan Yoga, that is the knowledge, the truth that you are acquiring, that atma is eternal and everything else is impermanent or temporary. So you're able to focus your mind on that thing. Once you develop in all of these six virtues, yeah, they're intertwined also, they will come in together also, they will
Uh,
like, hmm.
but samadhan actually doesn't translate directly as a focus. Means samadhan we generally say as a satisfaction, right?
Satisfaction, solution also we can say samadhan. But over here it means focus. When I am able to like resolve, I can put it in this way also, resolve all the dualities and then focus my mind on that one thing.
Okay.
So one pointedness is like generally when you will read more about this, then that one pointedness of the mind is what samadhan is.
Okay.
Okay, great. So once you are now on a mental and emotional level, also you are developed. Yeah, you are strong. You have built up that this level. So once you build one, then you go on, move to the next, then you move to the next. So after that, very naturally, this intense desire to be liberated. See, intense desire. There is still a desire over here. Intense desire to be liberated naturally comes up. Where now you see that, okay, I have a lot of desires. This is my way of functioning. And that these desires come and go. Yeah, once I achieve one, after that, I'm maybe satisfied for a while, and then some other desire comes up. So once you go through this entire process through the first three pillars or the first three stages, then you realize that one desire is stronger than the others. Okay, because now you are getting enlightened, then you will see your desire to get liberated will come up very strongly. And when this stage comes in, then all the other desires lose their essence actually. So right now also, maybe sometimes this desire does come up when we're suffering a lot. We're just like, now I want to be free of all of my suffering. So this is not the desire that we're talking about over here. When this desire comes up, then all other things will not matter to you. Okay, then you will directly go into the core practices of Gyan Yoga. Then you won't be like pulled back to the material world. Yeah, so that is the intensity with which this desire comes up. So in Sanskrit it's called mumukchutva. Yeah, intense desire to be liberated. Okay, any doubts so far? No.
टर्म कंट्रोल ऑफ सेंसेस, ये
हम्म।
मोस्टली क्या देखा गया है कि जब भी हम लोग मतलब ये पाथ पे होते हैं, तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स तो हम लोग एक्सरसाइज कर पाते हैं कि काफी मालूम कर पाते हैं कि क्या हमारे लिए अच्छा है नहीं है। कुछ समय तक फॉलो करने के बाद वापस हम लोग जानते हुए भी ये ब्रेक कर देते हैं और वापस बैक आ जाते हैं, अगेन फिर वापस चलते हैं आगे। तो ये जो चलना और वापस मुड़ना है ना, ये कंटिन्यूअस है। तो इसको कैसे ब्रेक किया जाए? हम जानते हैं कि ठीक नहीं है, फिर भी कर लेते हैं। तो उस वक्त वो मोमेंट में दम की कमी हो जाती है। अगेन रियलाइज होता है, अगेन उसको ओवरकम करते हैं और आगे बढ़ते हैं। तो ये जो जर्नी है ना, इसी में स्टक हो जाते हैं, ऐसा मुझे लगता है। लाइक मैं अपने पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बोल रही हूँ। तो इसको कैसे हम लोग ओवरकम करें?
Okay, so one thing is you never give up. Once you feel like now you are not able to practice those things, it's okay to have cheat days. At least for a normal person, it's okay to have cheat days. So that is the backward journey that we go in. Yeah, but eventually your will develop. And it also depends on a lot of other factors like your previous karmas. Yeah, the amount of stability you're able to get in your spiritual practice. Also, it depends on the right time for you, the virtues that you have developed over lifetimes and how much they support you in this lifetime. So this process will happen a lot of times. Okay, that is why we are over here. Otherwise we would not have been over here. Yeah, all of us are here because we are not free of that. So don't give up. Every time you think you need space, you think you need to go backward or have cheat days, have one or two and then continue your journey. That is the only way in which you can break this, because everything and anything around you will pull you back. That is the, in Gyan Yoga we call it Maya or illusion. So that illusion will always try to pull you back. When Buddha was sitting in, Siddhartha Gautam was sitting in his sadhana and final sadhana, when he was doing Vipassana and he was going to get liberated, a lot of things came up for him also. Like Maya tried to trap him too, but he was like, he had developed so many virtues over lifetimes that he was able to sit over there and be free of them, or at least not break his sadhana. So it requires a lot of practice. Don't stop trying. Main thing. Always come back, because you know that that is where you will be able to, this is the way in which you will be able to attain what you are looking for. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll move ahead. Okay. So then we come to the 3 core practices. Once I'm established in these 4 things properly, a Gyan Yogi is established in these things, then he moves on to the core practices of Gyan Yoga. Okay. So the first is Shravan or listening. Second is Manan or contemplating. And third is Nididhyasana or meditation. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So what happens is then when you go to a guru, now your mind is stable. You have this intense desire to attain liberation. Then you go and sit with a guru. Yeah. You try to understand, okay, why is this happening? Who am I? What is my purpose? So when the guru is giving you the knowledge, that is when the first stage comes in where you are listening. Okay. And this listening is not a one time process, one thing. Second of all, it requires you to be consciously present. Your senses and your mind and your being should be present when the guru is telling you or giving you the truth. That is why the guru and shishya relationship is very intimate. Yeah. It's a relation that cannot be like equated with any other, because the guru is the person who gives you the truth. Yeah. So it's a very deep relation that you share with him, somebody who is telling you the truth. So there is no comparison. Yeah. So when he is telling you, giving you the knowledge, you need to be aware, you need to be present over there, that you are able to absorb that information. Okay. And a lot of times what will happen is he is saying something and we are perceiving something else according to our own level. Yeah, where we are, we perceive those things in that way. So Shravan also goes again and again, unless and until you're able to understand that one thing properly. Yeah, there is a saying somewhere that it's not necessary to understand the entire universe. If you can understand just one word and understand it properly, then you will understand the entire universe. Yeah. So understanding that one word or whatever he is saying is very important. So active listening, I would say. Yeah. We can, in modern terms, we can understand this as active listening. Okay. So once the guru has given you the information, then you move to the next stage where you are going into manan or contemplation. Now I've been told something, maybe a truth that I'm not very comfortable with, or anything that is new information to me. So what happens is, after the class, maybe generally speaking, you go and contemplate on certain things that have been talked of. So this is what the Gyan Yogi also does. Once he has heard something, heard a particular truth, he goes and he thinks, ponders over those things, writes those down however he can. Like, it can be his own way of doing it. So he thinks of that, he tries to understand how it's implied to his life. Yeah. And how that same law is functioning in the entire world. So he tries to understand what the guru has said. Okay. So there is a lot of back and forth between all these 3 stages. Okay. Once he gains the understanding, okay, this is the reality, this is the truth, then he goes into nididhyasana or meditation, where he now understands that I am not separate from the universe. Yeah. And he focuses on that thing only and makes that the point of his meditation. So you will go into, like, after Shravan, you'll go into Manan, then you'll go into Nididhyasana, then you'll again go into Shravan, maybe for the same thing, maybe for a different concept. But you will keep going in these 3 practices again and again, unless and until it intuitively, like, you intuitively realize that there is only Atma is the only constant in life. Yeah. And it is through the power of your mind that you go deeper from your conscious to your subconscious mind. That is the level till which the Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasana get, where through the mind only you are able to realize that, okay, there is Atma, and this is the only point of focus that I should have in life. Yeah. So once again, in Shravan and Manan, both these stages, even in Nididhyasana, once again, a lot of things that you might not want to hear, but you hear. yeah, which might discourage you from your path. But here it's very important once again to have a strong will and to stick to the path of Gyan Yoga. Yeah, okay. Any doubt in these three practices?
So this Nididhyasana, right?
Hmm.
So this Gyan Yoga meditation is generally different from the meditation that we do, right? So actually, how it's different? Like I have read a lot of places that the Advaita Vedanta or Gyan Yoga meditation is different from the regular meditation. So how it's actually different?
What do you mean by regular meditation?
I mean, when I last time heard it, they said that in the Shravan Manana Nidhyasana, the meditation that we do is generally related to Shravan and Manan. So I didn't get how that is related, because in meditation we generally don't think specific about some things. We only concentrate on breath, or maybe we try to concentrate only, but we don't actually go into what been taught or something like that. So that is kind of a regular meditation where we are concentrating on breath, or maybe how our senses are doing, or internal things. But I'm not sure that is right or wrong. But when I last time heard about this, they said that Gyan Yoga meditation is something different from regular meditation, where you are actually trying to focus on the previous stages also. So how it's done, I'm not sure. Just
Hmm.
asking it.
Okay, so see, all the meditations that you have in your course also, all of them have an object. So over here, the object becomes what you have heard of. Yeah. On a deeper level, it becomes the one reality. That is the deeper level. But for a beginner, they will contemplate, after contemplating, they will meditate on that truth only. Yeah. So your object just changes. Like breath is one form of meditation, then you have body awareness, you have so many different forms of meditations, and all of them, what they aim to do is narrow down all the things that you have around you to one point. Yeah, that is what meditation is, one pointedness, I can say. After an effortless one pointedness, that is what meditation is. When we do ashtanga yoga, we will discuss more on meditation and concentration, all of these topics. But so over here, like, that one point is the truth that you are hearing and contemplating on. So like this, all the meditations are different. At least this is what I know of the Gyan Yoga
So,
meditation.
like, we're trying to say here that, like, say, suppose in Bhakti Yoga, if I'm going meditation. So, and at the back of the mind, like, my image is there that I want to reach the God, and I'm meditating on that. And now here, my maybe aim is higher consciousness. That is everything. So that back of the mind, that is there, and then I'm meditating to reach that. Something like that, we can say.
See, your mind will eventually be focused on just one thing. So that one thing for a beginner, once again, that is what I'm saying. For a beginner, that might be the thought that you have discussed upon. Okay. And eventually your mind will be absorbed in that reality. So you can use back of the mind. Like when you use back of the mind, I'm thinking that you are talking of two minds, like one which you are consciously focusing and one you are one which is not consciously focused. Yeah. So for a beginner, because we are not aware of where the not conscious one is focused, generally for a beginner, we are not even aware where our subconscious mind is. Yeah. So you work with your conscious mind only. It's a very high stage where you get into that.
Yeah, so that was actually on the real basis. Like my doubt was that generally we don't try to use anything. We just want to be conscious of that meditation, right? So actually, that was actually kind of question that how it can be a different, how meditation can be a different. Like everything is related to same thing, right? So, anyways, like that's fine.
And
Like,
every,
just
sorry,
wanted to know if there is any kind of.
can you go again on that? Like I did not understand what conclusion you drew out of it.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to know because that any specific differentiation is there or not. But it's fine. No.
The object changes with each
Mhm.
meditation.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we'll end today's class. So any doubts, anybody? No? Okay. We'll end the class. So back and neck straight, close your eyes. Allow yourself to absorb all of this information. We'll chant Om one time, followed by 3 Shantis. First, take one deep breath, inhale deeply, and exhale deeply. Inhale for Om. Om. Shanti. 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 Join both your palms together in front of your chest. Bow down. And remember any one incident from your past 24 hours that you are grateful for. Say a mental thank you. And now rub both the palms together. Place them over your eyes. Slowly, while blinking and looking at your palms, open up your eyes. And namaste to everyone. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow.